Hi, I'm Rachel Gregg, the crew liaison with the Montana Film Office, and this is Crew Call.
My name is Bobby Brooks. I'm from Laurel, Montana. I've been in the business since the early 80s, be about 30 years now. I'm Armourer, Special Effects Coordinator, and a Wrangler. As an armorer, I take care of all the weapons that are on set and make sure that they're not loaded and they're all cleared. Nobody's going to hurt themselves with them. And special effects, I do everything from just little blood squibs all the way to big explosions. It's always been a challenge being an armorer because it's very seldom anybody shows up, actors. Most of the time, yeah, I have to teach people how to shoot, you know, and make it look like they're actually holding a gun, like it's going to actually shoot. I built bow and arrows, rubber axes, anything needs to be made of rubber, all the way up to modern World War II films, you know, working with Thompson machine guns and M16s. And then I have cannons too, you know. You got to get into the big stuff, have the artillery, you know. But that's probably the most challenging thing is dealing with people that are not used to, you know, they've never been to war, so, you know. I worked on a commercial, a Pepsi commercial. They needed some guys to ride a bull past a barrel that was painted like a Pepsi can. The stunt guys they hired couldn't get it done. You know, they weren't rodeo people, so they called me and asked me if we'd give it a go. Ride a bighorn bull past the can, you know, which was really easy because it was a nice bull, just jumped straight. They paid us really well, and next thing I know, I was working on the set of Lonesome Dove, working as an extra. Filmed that not far from where I was raised, down in South Texas. I came up in 1990 to work on Son of the Morning Star. Sure, I brought a whole bunch of horses up. We bring our own guns because we were like individual contractors. They hired us to come up and be the basic background for the film and do all the war scenes and everything and ride with the stunt guys. And when I came up, I met my wife up here, you know, and fell in love with Montana. The funnest and wildest film that I ever worked on was Rambo 3 down in Arizona. Played an Afghan soldier, shooting machine guns off the horses, and that's the first time I had a chance to work in special effects. We had a few days in between where we didn't do anything. I was bored, so I went and I helped the special effects guys string wires out and started learning from there. Worked with some of the top Hollywood people. Just walked up and said, hey, can I help? In a few days they put me on a payroll for special effects, so I actually got a credit out of the deal. Geronimo, and that was back in Moab, Utah. Then I worked on The Postman. Montana Films has been far and away. Fork in the Road, A Plum Summer, I was special effects coordinator on those two. Fork in the Road, that the car went off the cliff and blew up down in the valley there. So that was a lot of fun to do. The wildest one, I worked on a film called Ride with the Devil. One of the scenes is where they ride into a town and they pretty much just burn it. We burned it to the ground. It was an old town that had been flooded out some years before. They basically bought the old town, you know. And we had a lot of wagons and a huge set of mules that were probably 16 hands. They were just monsters. The extras were riding through town shooting everything up. And the director loved those big mules, so they had them sitting in the middle of the street and those mules took off. They were going to town, and I ran down the street. This is on foot too. Now I didn't have no horse, man. So I wasn't on the horseback right then. So I ran down and got in front of those mules and just screaming and yelling in front of them, you know, and I finally got a hold of them. And those other guys were running down the street chasing that big wagon, you know, and everybody piled on. if those mules would have got away, it would have been all over. They'd have gone, they'd have been back in Texas, man. It's about time for the Westerns to get popular again. It seems to me like a 10-year spurt. What really got us was open range, you know, and a lot of those movies went to Canada. When Canada came up with their incentive program, it really killed us. Yeah, you know, it's up in the air. It's hard to say. You know, some of these Westerns now are made in Australia and wherever they, you know, they get the best deal. You can't blame them. You know, the film industry here needs to grow. There's so much room and so much talent here. But this is a fantastic place to put a good crew together. They're just waiting for the next project to come along.